Tonight's theme is economic development and landlocked countries. I proposed that theme, and it has been easily endorsed by all the stakeholders. Being landlocked is not only a handicap, since it allowed these countries to preserve their integrity and identity against various processes of invasion or acculturation. And some landlocked countries do very well. Think of Switzerland or Austria or Luxembourg, among others. But today's challenge is to transform being landlocked in added value in a world increasingly shaped by trade, globalization, and interaction. So being landlocked is not a curse, it's not doomed. And I believe tonight's debate will carry enlightened analysis and potential solutions for Nepal to overcome being landlocked and find its own path to development.
Of the 40 or so countries that are landlocked, which have a population of more than 250,000, so 250,000, of them, only 6 are sort of rich, really rich. So you have the Switzerland, Austria, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary. Then you have another 14 countries which are either endowed with natural resources, so oil and minerals, or diamonds in the case of Botswana, quite famously, or they happen to be located nearby neighbors who are relatively well off, but they themselves lag behind. Then you have the remaining 20 or so, which are absolutely rock bottom in terms of the income ladder, that are the bottom quartile of global income per capita. So mostly in sub-Saharan Africa and countries like Nepal and Afghanistan here. The second is, so 10% of the world population live in landlocked countries, but 80% of that subset is actually quite poor. And the third fact I want to share with you is, if you happen to be located very close or you're virtually inside the world's richest or the world's largest common market, then landlockedness is not so much an issue. The economic channels of why landlocked countries, everything else held constant, are lag behind coastal economies has been well known since the time of Adam Smith, and even earlier. But there's a fundamental point there that landlocked countries, because of the costly distance from world markets, are lag behind in terms of technology diffusion. Wealth creation happens because of a sustained rise in productivity gains, reflecting specialization. And specialization is a function of division of labor. And this, I borrow from Adam Smith again, division of labor is limited by the extent of the market.
Each country has its sets of problems and limitations. So the objective of the United Nations is somewhat to allow the world to function in a way where disadvantages are compensated by mechanisms of laws and conventions. And actually, when it comes to landlocked countries, the UN has also seized the matter and has also made some progress on that. When we look at the problems, what are the main problems? This is the remoteness from city. So it means that whatever you want, you have to bring, or whatever you have to send, costs you more money. So that's one impact. The second one is that since you are surrounded by these neighbors, and actually, mind you, there are some landlocked countries that have only one single neighbor, but you are dependent on the stability of that transit country. Let's say for the countries that are not landlocked, we'll call them the transit countries for the landlocked countries. And you're very dependent on that, because if something happens in this country, so it means that you, landlocked, you have no possibility to do something else. And what is the main problem of the landlocked country is that somewhat these problems create a vicious circle. Because having no access to sea obliges you, therefore, to go with long transport back and forth, which means that you have a high cost in most of the things that you buy or you sell, which means that it slows the growth of the countries, and if the economy is slow, as a consequence, very often, the social development is as well. So what the convention is aiming at is actually as rectifying this inequality. Because what we want at the end of the day is for all countries in the world to be on an equal footing when it comes to working together. Because, and that's the logic of having one country, one vote in the United Nations.
When you look at all landlocked countries today, the concentration of, and especially the 31 developing countries, none of them is in a high bracket of human development indicator. None of them is in a high bracket of income. So there is a correlation between being landlocked and becoming to the bottom of the list of income rank list and human development indicator rank list of developing countries. It has been known for a long time, and there have been many papers on that. Each new paper brings some new elements, but basically the discussion remains to be the same. So that's sobering, because it means that we have a problem that we know. We know where the problems lie. We even know the kind of quote-unquote solutions which might improve the situations. But still we are discussing the same factors, which means that somehow implementation has not been there. We have failed maybe discussing the how instead of discussing the what. Let me move to the cost of landlordness. We know them. They are linked to transport costs. And when we say transport costs, there are many dimensions. One is distance, obviously. The second one is the quality of infrastructure. A third dimension is administrative hurdles, all along the way. They can be due to frontiers, but not always frontiers. You can have a lot of regulations that come in. And the fourth series of transport costs are linked to stability and security, not only in the partner countries, but in the country itself. In thinking about landlockedness, we should immediately shift to thinking about access to markets. Which markets and how the access can be organized and for what products and services. And in that sense, the quality of being landlocked doesn't disappear, but becomes one of the dimensions to guide the thinking instead of being seen as an insurmountable problem.
I think that in the case of Nepal, you don't have the sea, but for God's sake, you have the highest mountain in the world. So I would say, you can capitalize first and foremost on your assets. And the assets of Nepal are actually a huge potential for development. But you also have such a diversity in your culture and so on and so forth, that this as well can make you develop some product, that would be unique. And if these products are unique, they can actually compete easily because the cost is not so much the issue. If you are the only one selling certain things, it may take longer for these things to go out. It might be a little bit more costly because there is all this transaction cost and transport. But since you are the only one, so capitalize on your uniqueness. And with your uniqueness, you can really unleash the potential of Nepal.
Landlocked countries, on average, especially in the developing world, have the most restrictive rules and regulations governing this kind of trade. Precisely the kind of sectors that would have negated the traditional disadvantage of landlockedness, which is basically to do with shipping dependent, transport of heavy, bulky goods. Right?
So the point is, if we can reorient our policies and strategic direction in terms of what kind of sectors do we prioritize as a landlocked country, then I think the determinism or the landlockedness as destiny sort of dissipates, it fades away. Right? So in Nepal's case, it's definitely modern tradable services, sectors like tourism, and even if it's manufacturing, it's high value, low volume kind of products, which can be carried and transported efficiently if we have a world-class or at least a much more competitive aviation industry here.